Hello, welcome back. Sorry to interrupt great conversations. Lisa, if you'd like to join, and we're going to just grab Sam as well. Or should I say Sam nominated for Digital Leaders 100 Young Person. So do vote for Sam.
And,
get in there.
And can we call Penny Siddle up on please, Andy, and Paul back up as well. So I was just having a really interesting conversation with Robin just before we were called back up on stage, and who was saying how we need to be careful we don't allow the tech to prevent us from getting back into face-to-face conversations, because actually that is really, really important for our mental health and for society and for our economy. And I think that's really, really important. And I know it's something that Penny would absolutely echo. And Penny is also our champion of all our digital inclusion work and leading on that. And there was a couple of questions in the Q&A around digital inclusion. So Penny, it was really an opportunity just for you to talk a bit about the work that you've been leading around that, if that's okay.
Yes, and we've just had such an interesting conversation on table 11 with some digital champions who've joined us today. Welcome to you. Lovely to speak to you. And also the head of transformation at Magna Housing. So he presented a fact which blew my mind. They've imagined that about half of their residents were offline, and they did a survey of their 9,000 residents and found that 85% of them were online. So a much bigger percentage online than they had imagined. And that obviously can affect the way that they interact with people. And we found something similar, nothing as dramatic as that, but during lockdown, when we've been running the digital hotline and some of our digital champions have been telephony support, we have found that people's motivations for being online have changed. So we've had calls from people who traditionally have said, oh no, digital is not for me. I don't need it. I don't need to be online. I've managed all this, that, blah, blah, blah. And now, are saying, yes, I really need to be online. And this has changed. It is a game changer for us, I think, in the way that we deliver services and interact with people. And now is our opportunity before the winter to help people get online. And we have got been given some retired Dorset Council Surface Pros, which we are now being able to get out to people who really need it and who can trial being online and see how that helps. So yeah, there's loads going on in this area. Thanks. You're on mute.
Happened once, wasn't it? It's the word of the year, or words of the year. You're on mute. So Sam, we've got quite a lot of questions in the Q&A, haven't we? Is there a couple we want to pull out for Paul from there?
Yeah. So I'll be diplomatic, and I'll start at the top. So Paul, the top voted one is: how important is the role of full fibre network for 5G?
Hopefully you can hear me. The critical thing is to make sure that all of the technologies are put to use in the most appropriate way. In order for 5G to work, you need to roll out the Fibre Connect network. The way of connecting the towers and the masts is going to be over optic systems anyway. I think for me, it doesn't have to be full fibre. I think we just need to have proper connectivity everywhere, and that needs to be fit for purpose. Briefly, there's almost nobody here, I think, that's actually connected or even a bit of wire. And I'm wireless, my keyboard's wireless, everything's wireless, right? So we actually want that mobility, the freedom to actually move and to interact with people. So that can be over a local wireless technology or a wide area wireless technology, but ultimately it goes from there into the ground and into the networks. So fibre is important, but it's important to make sure that we get the wireless connectivity so that people aren't tethered all the time and have that aspect of being able to work and interact freely.
Thanks, Paul. So we've picked up on some of the digital skills and the digital inclusion elements. There's a couple of things around security, isn't there, as well, in terms of making sure people can't
Yeah,
take.
I answered this. Sorry. There was a question earlier on security about dealing with, making sure that we, the aspect of criminals having access to technology that gives them a significant advantage over other people. For me, it's important that the services are available to everyone so that we're not disadvantaging people, but really importantly that our community service providers, whether it's the police or healthcare workers, are actually really enabled to be able to operate. And one thing that I mentioned on the table is that there's a feature in 5G that never existed before, which is a feature called network slicing. And what that does is it allows the network to have different personas. So you can say these users need to have these kind of services, and other users need a different set of services. So you could enable the healthcare workers, for instance, have access to more resources, or the policing services. So that's really important. That feature is put to good use, and it applies at all scales. It applies at the small scale of the small cells, and also at the macro cells, the wide area coverage piece. So it can be managed so that services are appropriate to the users and can be changed dynamically. And the last thing, specifically with regard to criminal activity, you can't stop this stuff. You just have to be able to respond to it and be ready for it. It's education for the public. The critical thing is making sure people are aware of what they need to do to keep themselves safe. Intelligence services and responders have the tools at their hand to recognize bad behavior and are able to respond to it.
Thank you. There was a really, I don't know whether Andy Hadley wants to come up on stage to ask you. He's got quite a long, lengthy question, or whether we arrange for a discussion afterwards to pick up on Andy's query around costs and ambition. So perhaps maybe you and Andy could just catch each other before the session ends, Paul, if that's okay. Brilliant. Is there anything else anybody wanted to pop into the chat in terms of any of the discussion? We'll give you that opportunity. Now, what we normally do at the end of our network events in the last few minutes is ask anybody in the room whether they have got anything that they wanted to publicise, any projects that they're involved in that they just wanted to highlight. So it's almost like a 30-second slot to come on stage and do a bit of a pitch or awareness about things that would be useful to everybody else in the room. So if you wanted to do that, you're more than welcome. I'm just thinking we don't have a hands up option, do we, in
Lisa, yes there is. You don't, because you're on stage. Everyone else has a hands up option, so if they just put their hands up, then they can join you on stage. So anyone
Paul's put his hand up.
I've got my hand up. I've just realised I was looking at the chat. I was trying to find the questions, and there's a Q&A panel. So I was looking at the wrong place.
Yeah.
I can quickly go down those if you want me to.
I think it was just the ones at the end, if okay, for Andy, if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. I'll if we can keep these questions, what I'll do is I'll try and reply to them offline and send you a note that you can be distributed to all of the members.
I've got a hand up from Jill Patterson. Oh, it's gone down now. So, Jill, did you want to come up on stage? Is there something you wanted to share? You're very welcome to.
Jill should get a pop up now, and she can just accept it and join us on stage.
No, quiet. No, okay, that's fine. If we've got no takers, we've got no takers. That's absolutely fine. That just leaves us, I think, really to wrap up the event for today, and to thank everybody that's contributed, and to everybody for their table discussions. Matt's just popped back up on stage. That's brilliant. Did you have a few words that you wanted to?
Well, I was just going to add to the thanks, Lisa, that you've just given out, and just to say, really interesting discussions this morning. Listening in, great use of a different technologies. It's the first time I've used this, so I thought it was fascinating. I noticed that we were all far too polite, I think, to drag somebody off somebody else's table, but I'd love to have seen what that looked like in a virtual scenario. Wasn't entirely certain, but I think that Dorset's digital future is bright. We certainly looked at our table at the graphic and said, actually, it's absolutely spot on, and we've got to accelerate it and do that. We need to capture the digital behaviour changes that have happened as a result of COVID-19. So we talk about in Dorset Council, we talk about enabling the able. We had a lot of people in Dorset who were using digital services, but not how they work with councils and not with all businesses. And actually, through this pandemic, they're using them a lot more to capture that good behaviour and that behaviour change. Continue to focus, as Penny was reminding us, on digital exclusion and network stability, making sure that those who are digitally excluded aren't, particularly going forwards, which is really, really important. Love the bit about 5G network slicing. I have a whole different set of images about what that really is, Paul, but I thought that was great. And cows texting is going to be one of my takeaways from today, most definitely. But it's all about how we use digital for good, isn't it? And how we ensure that our business community, our actual communities are really, really supported through everything that they do. And I think this has been an excellent session. And thanks to everybody who's put it together and who's contributed.
Brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Matt. And just to add to that, we will send out the link to the podcast. We did record the segment where Paul was giving his presentation and we were doing the discussion with Alex and Matt, so that will come out as well. And the tables will still be open for the next half hour. So if you're still in the middle of a discussion, or we're in the middle of a discussion and you want to continue to talk to people, then you can stay on and use that. But appreciate other people will be disappearing off the platform. So thanks ever so much. And this is the end of our 8th digital network. Good to see you all. Thank you. The end. It's like we need some curtains to come down or something now.